Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Deas. Welcome to Health Center from Downstate Medical Center. Welcome to more information on a very important mineral that we seemingly forget it's around only because it's not published enough in the lay magazines and things like this, and it's seen in laboratories, and we've been trying to take the laboratory to the public and say, hey, we can help you with your diabetes or help you with your hypertension and things like this, and medicines that you're taking you think you have side effects from other things, and it might be low magnesium and things. So we have Dr. Burton Altura here, who has been working on magnesium for umpteen number of years, and him and his wife Bella are doing magnificent work right there on the 5th floor at the Downstate Medical Center. So I want to carry you a little further into discussion on this very important mineral called magnesium. Dr. Altura, it's so nice having you again with us. And I know some folks might not have seen the show before. Just a moment of your background here, how long you've been at Downstate and working on magnesium.
Well, I've been working on magnesium with my wife for approximately 55 years.
Okay.
I think. If my brain is still working, probably.
Right.
All right. We started this work about 1960.
Right. Okay.
We're at 2013, it's almost 55 years.
Right.
I've been at Downstate since 1974. So approximately 40 years at Downstate.
Yes.
And a major part of our program, research-wise, both basic science research and clinical research, has focused on magnesium at Downstate. And we've gone into a lot of diseases and thought that magnesium might be a pivotal factor in many diseases, not just cardiovascular diseases, not neurological diseases, but gynecological disorders, neurovascular disorders, stroke, sickle cell diseases, seizures, for example. A number of blood disorders. So we have looked at a variety of things where we thought that magnesium might be pivotal: cancers, tumors, invasions. So we have found a lot of tie-ins with the amount of magnesium that is lost by subjects and the relation of that amount of magnesium to the disease state.
Now, you know, to do all the research you're doing, it takes funding. And NIH, all these different organizations that give money for research and so forth. Have you felt it difficult to get the funding that you need to go further into these studies and things like this?
I am glad that you brought this up, because I've always been reluctant to bring it up my own, because people always think if you do that, you're blowing your own horn.
Right, surely.
And I don't like to do that, but you raise a very important point. I and my wife have been fortunate over the years in this sense. We've been very well supported by the National Institutes of Health in many divisions: National Institute of Drug Abuse, National Heart Lung Institute, National Institute of Mental Health, the National Institutes of Alcohol and Drug Abuse. We've been very handsomely supported by them, but we never actually got a single grant. We have money probably in the range of $25 to $30 million in our lifetime from NIH. Never got a grant for magnesium.
Wow, that's something.
As of this moment.
Yeah. Now, is that because it's not publicized enough to the public, the demand that, you know, because right now folks are going to health food stores themselves and getting bottles of calcium and magnesium, even the ratio of 2 to 1 and things like this, which is so important. You just don't take calcium by itself or magnesium by itself, because it has to have a certain kind of balance too.
Well, I think there are several reasons for this. As we said in the earlier discussion in part 1, there has been a major focus on calcium. And magnesium has been the forgotten cation or mineral in the body for a long, long time. For more than 100 years, it's been the forgotten element. That's point number one. People focus on calcium. And there are major problems with focusing on calcium, which we should get into in terms of health, because people are taking too much calcium, but we're going to get into this later, hopefully. So I want to focus again on why the NIH isn't funding these, in my opinion.
I see.
It's not necessarily the answer for it. Second reason is most of the people in the magnesium field, unfortunately, prior to our work,
Right.
and even now, have not been able to publish their work in the finest journals in the world.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Yes.
We were the only people to this moment that have published 4 articles in the most prestigious American journal, Science.
Right, yes.
No one else has ever done this
I
in the
see.
magnesium field.
I see.
All right.
I see.
So I think that has caused a problem in the review process because reviewers like to look at where papers are published. So if you publish as an investigator, which we call scientists, or physicians, in journals which are not recognized by a review body or review committee as top journal, they tend to look down upon it. But despite all of these papers in science that we have published in the finest American journal, still in all, the funding has not been there.
Yes.
All right? So you have to look at other reasons. There's a third reason going on here. And I'm sorry to say this, but I have to say it, because you asked the question.
Surely.
I had been invited, as my wife has, to speak all over the world on magnesium and its relationship to calcium.
Right.
And when I talk about this in front of people like the Dairy Council, they get very upset. Why?
I see.
Because most dairy products have very little magnesium, and they're loaded with calcium, and they're supplemented with calcium.
Right. Surely.
And this is causing major problems right now. There have been at least 8 studies published in the last 3 years which show that too much calcium is causing cardiovascular disease. Too much calcium that women are particularly taking. They're advised to take 1,200 to 1,400 milligrams excess of calcium per day. This is very bad. This is very dangerous. So
Surely.
this is another reason we're up against a political force.
Well, you know, when you think about it, people can go into any health food store and get calcium like 500 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams. But the things that calcium is also in a lot of the foods, say heavy milk drinkers, for example.
That is correct. And a supplement, and now you go in the supermarket.
Yes.
You pick up a container of milk. What does it say? Supplemented with calcium.
That's right. That's right.
All right, and we're giving this to children.
There you
Now,
go. Surely.
Let's talk about that for a moment. You know,
Right.
there was a study done a number of years ago, published in the American Journal of Pathology, from people out in Ohio, pathologists, which investigated deaths by accident of children 2 years to 14 years of age. And they looked at the coronary arteries and a whole bunch of other vessels in the body. And what did they find? Even at 2 to 4 years of age, they found plaques already developing on coronary arterial vessels and the aorta. Can you imagine this, 2 to 4 years old?
What I can't
All right.
imagine is how when I went to public school and they used to force you to drink the containers of milk, and the kids got so tired of drinking milk they started throwing them around like snowballs. In the winter time,
That I didn't know.
they froze. Yeah, the froze.
That's
You know,
interesting.
they froze outside the school,
That's
so the
interesting.
kids couldn't drink it. So they throw them like milk balls. You know. So, but the thing is that milk was forced upon you, and you had to almost drink it.
Now let's say that milk is important for
Surely.
you as you're a child growing up because it's needed for bone development. There's no
Sure.
question about it. Needed for phosphorus, needed for the calcium. There's no question about it. It's the supplementation
Right.
that's dangerous. It's not, we see cereal supplemented with calcium. We see food supplemented with calcium.
Sure.
But do you see supplements of magnesium to balance it?
No,
No.
not at all. No,
All right.
No.
That's what the problem is.
Yes.
So the food industry and dairy industry doesn't like me to get on a program because I will bring this up to the
Yeah.
audience.
Well, this is so important.
All right.
I mean, yes.
And I think it's my responsibility
of course,
to do this.
Joy.
And I'm trying to make people aware of what we have as a major problem. They have to contact their senators. They have to contact their congressmen, as we are talking right now.
Surely.
We can't do it. Bella and I can't do this.
Right, of
You know,
course.
because they'll
of
think
course.
we're trying to blow our own horns all the time. But this needs a groundswell
Yeah.
of warnings to senators, congressmen, presidents, etc., governors, local legislatures.
Right.
That they have to start blowing their own horns in terms of food safety. What are we talking about in food safety now? We're talking about bacterial contamination,
That's
virus
right.
contamination.
Surely.
But we're not talking about dietary
That's right.
rules and
Certainly.
regulations. Let's talk about the processing industry.
Right, sure.
We have probably the most efficient food processing industry in the world,
Right,
in this country.
sure.
And we're known for this. We're shipping, we're exporting all over the world canned material, frozen material,
Oh, yes.
which are very good. The problem is when you process food, by every process we now know, you deplete the foods of magnesium. Let me give you a simple example.
Okay.
Let's take molasses.
Yeah.
Molasses, what do we do? Or cane, sugar cane. What do? We want the refined sugar.
Sure.
Okay. Do you know when you take those two substances to produce refined sugar, you lose 98% of the magnesium? 98% of the magnesium. When you take something simple as a potato, you put it in a can,
Yes.
it has to go through a boiling process
Right, yes.
for sterilization purposes.
Yes.
You lose 70% of the magnesium in the potato when you
Wow.
put it in the can.
Boy, that's something.
You take broccoli, asparagus, which are rich in magnesium,
Right.
you process those to put in a can, 40 to 70% of the magnesium is lost.
Boy, that's...
But when you pick your vegetables in a supermarket
Yes.
and you carefully eat those raw vegetables, you're getting all your magnesium.
Right.
You're not losing any of it.
I see.
And the best source of magnesium, and one of the best sources, I should say, are green vegetables. Why? We have all that chlorophyll there. That's what makes it green. And we talked about how magnesium is important and critical for photosynthesis. We wouldn't have any oxygen without magnesium. And one would never think of the average person you talk to, even an astute, well-educated person,
Yes.
even no matter who you ask this question of, do you know what this is? Do you think it's nutritious? What will they tell you? I don't know what it is, and I know it can't be nutritious.
Right. Now tell me this, with cigarette smoking,
Right.
is there any relationship where even that might interfere?
Yes, yes.
Because
Now, one
you
of
know-
the big contaminants in cigarettes
Uh-huh.
is thiocyanates.
Right, yes, surely.
And we published a paper a few years back which shows that thiocyanate deplete magnesium.
So you're talking about a habitual smoker.
Habitual smoker, and remember
Is-
what these people come up with: pulmonary hypertension,
Surely.
congestive heart failure,
There you
and
go.
cancers
Okay.
of the lungs.
All right. They
No
only
question
talk about
that,
lung
all
cancer.
right? Pulmonary hypertension, we showed both experimentally and clinically, is associated with a tremendous loss of magnesium in the body.
Wow.
And those pulmonary blood vessels cannot maintain their normal vascular tone,
Right.
and they contract. Pulmonary vessels normally don't contract. They're very extensile. They're very distensible.
Right, okay.
They have very little smooth muscle.
Yes.
But when you have a cigarette smoker and he gets pulmonary hypertension, those smooth muscle cells change into contractile tissues, very heavily contractile, and they produce high blood pressure within the lung.
Oh, boy.
And that's almost impossible to treat. Now, there's a genetic form of pulmonary hypertension in children. And they usually don't live beyond 16 years of age
I see.
because they go into cardiac failure. They're associated in each case with deficiency in magnesium. We found this out.
Now here we're talking always with nicotine or with cigarette smoking, lung cancer.
Right.
That's the big thing. Lung cancer make you lose your, or kind of losing your fingers because of vasculitis and things like that.
Various
you know?
kinds of amputations.
Amputations
Right.
are going on. In fact, the biggest things on television right now is to show people with their fingers gone who are heavy smokers.
Right. Right. They
Now-
get gangrene, they have to be amputated.
That's right.
Exactly.
But nobody's mentioning,
Nobody talks
up
about
to
this.
this point,
Right.
we're talking about it right now
Yes.
on this program with an expert in magnesium to say that smoking depletes the body of magnesium.
Except for our work and maybe one or two other
Yeah.
papers, there's nothing available.
That's
Nothing available.
At least supplement these people if they're going to smoke like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, we talked in the last session about the chemotherapeutic agents. Every chemotherapeutic agent basically depletes the body of magnesium.
Yes.
So why are all good physicians who are treating these thousands and thousands of patients not aware of this?
Oh,
Why aren't they supplementing their patients with magnesium?
of course.
Why aren't chemotherapeutic drugs designed with magnesium in the chemotherapeutic
There
drug?
you go. There
I
you
talked to a
go.
lot of companies about this. They just laugh at me.
You see, well, it's no laughing matter when you think of the medical bill that we're paying.
Exactly.
You know,
how much money we could save if these rules and regulations were followed
Of
with our
course.
diets,
Of course.
with our supplements,
Surely.
and it's to me it's unconscionable.
Well, what about like even children? We're talking about magnesium. You hear a lot about other nutrients that are necessary when the fetus, when the woman is in during pregnancy, that they need micronutrients
Right.
for that baby's even spinal cord to
Well,
close
you
up.
know, the first real use for magnesium clinically was in 1925 in Boston Hospital,
Okay.
when a physician in Boston Hospital found that he had a woman in severe eclampsia in pregnancy.
There you go.
And from experience, he knew
Right.
that the woman was going to lose the fetus, convulse, and die.
Right.
Or worse,
Right. Surely.
turn into a vegetable.
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
So he decided in 1925 to give intravenous magnesium for the first time. And what happened? The woman went through her pregnancy, delivered a normal child, and didn't have any high blood pressure after she delivered.
And that eclampsia, known as eclampsia,
Right.
Right now it's a prophylactic thing to give the magnesium. It can save millions of lives and
Correct.
babies
Right.
just by
Right.
infusing
Correct.
magnesium.
Right. Do you know the strange thing about this? Up until 10 years ago, the British, throughout all their colonies, did not believe, even though it was first done in 1925 in all of our studies, that they should use magnesium in preeclampsia and eclamptic women.
Yeah.
Only 10 years ago did they do their own study
Right.
and publish it in Lancet, and now they are going over to something they should have been doing 75 years ago. How many fetuses and women were lost? Hundreds of thousands
So
in the
no-
British colonies.
So
Hundreds of
no
thousands.
No matter how much research we do, how much is done to show how to preserve life, how to prevent all of these deaths, all of the kind of illness, chronic illnesses and things like this. And here we sit on a food industry or an industry that's making drinks and things like this. Fructose, for example. Look at fructose
Right.
and magnesium. When I
High
did...
fructose depletes magnesium.
You
right.
see? Well,
And all of our drinks are either loaded with high fructose.
oh, everything.
Loaded with it.
In fact, when you go into stores now, it's actually aisles of everything from yellow to blue.
Correct.
Drinks.
Right. I mean, I don't want to mention brand names here. Right?
Oh,
I don't want to do that.
Right.
Right? Can't get in real trouble. But indeed, you take a lot of these concentrated iced teas and teas that
Oh
are
yeah,
sold.
so sure.
They're notoriously bad with
I
these
know.
kind of substances. And the children love to drink these
Of
things.
course. Rather than water.
Right.
Rather than water.
We have, which I find very interesting myself, we have Michelle Obama, who likes to talk about healthy diets.
Yes, right.
I haven't heard her once talk about magnesium. Not
Right.
once.
Well, this
She
is
should
gonna
learn
cha-
something
it-
about
It's
this.
going to change from
You
this
know?
show. 'Cause
She
I'll
should
send-
learn something about this.
I'll send this disc to the White House. Since
Michelle,
I'm in
you
touch
hear what I'm saying?
Since I'm in touch with the White House for other things, I've been trying to bring
This is what you should be
attention
focusing
to.
on.
Right? But it's so true, and it's sad, but true.
It's very sad. I mean,
That,
here's a person that could do a lot of good. I'm not saying she isn't trying to do good. Don't get the
No,
wrong
of
idea. I don't
course
know how to
not.
get the wrong idea.
No.
But talk about real problems, what can be done in the pharmaceutical industry, what can we do in the food industry, what people should be aware of. I mean, we could, we're talking about all this medical costs. People are upset about their medical insurances.
Sure.
But what we want to do is prevent people from needing doctors, prevent people
Sure.
from needing hospitalization. And what better way to do it than making sure your diets, your drinks are properly constituted.
Well, when Mayor Bloomberg,
supplemented.
when Mayor Bloomberg came out with the fact of trying to control the amount of these kind of drinks, the first thing you heard, you're taking away our freedom.
Right.
Freedom of
Right.
what?
Right.
Freedom of good health?
Well, there is something to be said. I mean, let's face facts. I mean, there is something to be said on both sides. I mean,
Sure.
we have to look at that carefully.
Surely.
And not be political about this at
No.
all. In any event, they don't go about it in the right way. The right way is, and I speak to everyone out there, is come up with the facts like I am trying to enunciate today.
Okay.
All right. And if you produce the facts, it's my opinion, no matter what kind of education you have, I don't care if you have a 6th grade education.
Yes.
If you produce the facts, and people will go ahead and look the facts up
Surely.
and check you out, that's what they have to do.
Surely.
They will then come to their own conclusions that they're getting information which is inappropriate.
Right.
And they have to do their homework for their own families, for their own children. No matter what anybody says, they will be able to live longer,
Right. Surely.
have a better life. They won't need doctors. They won't need hospitals. They'll be healthier.
Surely.
And they'll like themselves
Of course.
much better.
Well, you know, like all the dietary medications that come out to lose weight and all of these kind of things. We're not looking at the trace elements
No.
that are involved in
No.
losing this weight.
No, we're not
But
looking at-
I took care of Walter Hudson with Dick Gregory. Walter Hudson weighed something like 1,500 pounds. And when
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 1,500
Unbelievable.
pounds, and he was in a room. When I went out to Long Island to look at him,
couldn't even leave.
he couldn't go out
Right,
the
couldn't get
door.
through the doors,
He
right.
couldn't get to the door, so he
I
built
remember
a-
that story,
Yeah,
right.
well, I was working with Bill McCreary at that time on the McCreary Report.
Yes.
And we got hold of Walter Hudson. But if you think of all the dietary material that people take, and they're not paying attention to
Yes.
the magnesium,
Right.
what are they doing to their body?
Well, here's what we first have to remember. Normally, if you're a healthy individual,
Right.
a healthy man, today in our current environment with processed foods,
Right.
with drinks that deplete magnesium, with chemotherapeutic drugs that deplete magnesium,
Right.
with all the processing foods are undergoing, you have to make sure you're taking at least 450 to 500 milligrams of magnesium in your water and your diet.
Okay.
Each day. Each day.
All right.
In order to play it safe, it should be 500 to 600 because of all these other problems. What people don't know, let's assume you are a bit of a drinker. You like to imbibe every once in a while with a glass of wine or two every night, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, maybe not every night. Alcohol is one of the biggest depleters of body magnesium.
Is that
Now,
true?
what do you do when you have too much alcohol? You go to the bathroom and you urinate,
Sure.
all right?
Sure.
But you're losing your magnesium in that urine.
Oh, yes.
And you're losing lots of magnesium. So what you have to be able to watch out for is a good diet which has this magnesium. So you want a lot of green vegetables, you want a lot of fish,
Right.
bony fish in particular. You want things that have lots of magnesium like nuts, walnuts,
Walnuts.
almonds,
Right, surely.
even pecans have a
Right.
lot of magnesium.
Right.
Dark chocolate, which people are talking
dark
about, which
chocolate, oh,
have a lot
yes.
of omega-3 oils in them, it's actually more important for the magnesium level that's in the dark chocolate. You know, the Aztecs years ago, they loved dark chocolate. That's how
Yeah.
the Spanish came back with the
Oh,
dark
yeah.
chocolate, the cocoa beans and everything from the Aztecs, right? Well, the Aztecs were onto something.
Sure.
They would like dark chocolate, not milk chocolate.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Oh,
And
yes.
it's dark chocolate that's loaded. It's the highest level of magnesium content of any food in the entire globe.
Well,
It's
you know,
dark chocolate.
Well, actually, when you look at Halloween now, they're giving the kids dark chocolate, you know, rather than the milk chocolate
Right.
type of thing.
So I
you
don't
know?
worry about any fat that's in that dark chocolate.
Right, yeah.
The milk chocolate I worry about. The
Right,
dark
yes.
chocolate I don't. If it's a good processed dark chocolate, it's healthy for you. And you should include that maybe every day in your diet, some dark chocolate.
Well, in conclusion, again, time becomes our enemy. We have a couple of minutes to finish up. Maybe I'd just like to make a statement to the White House, in a sense, to Michelle Obama, that what we have to do is start concentrating on this thing called magnesium, whether it has to be put in the water or whether people should be taking more supplements who are smokers and all this kind of things, and the prevention. If Obamacare is going to take care of these people, we could cut down, we have more money to spend on good things to raise up health rather than to treat disease. So just 1 minute, you could finish that.
Well, I think you're saying it, and we said it a few moments ago. This is a good opportunity
Yes,
for people in the present government,
right.
particularly Michelle Obama, who has made sort of food and diet her thing, as the saying goes,
Right, yes.
to come out, get the experts, get together, and take the opinions of experts, maybe like ourselves, to determine what the government should be advising people, not necessarily telling them they have to do it,
Right, yeah.
but seriously advising them and showing them why in a series of talks, in a series of conferences, and also, most importantly, support magnesium research.
Well, Dr. Altura, it's been a pleasure having you with us. Is there a number you'd like to leave on screen for folks who might be overloaded, though, to get in touch with you?
Well, I think my email is probably the best way to do it.
All right.
And that's very simple, BALTURA at DOWNSTATE.edu, Baltura at Downstate
Well, I tell you, I think this has been an hour that we have spent talking. It could go on for hours and hours, and could improve health by hours and hours, and life by hours and hours. If people only knew simple things that our diet can make a difference. So I want to
realize
thank
we
you.
didn't get into
and
any
I
of
wanna
the
thank you.
specific diseases.
And I want to thank your wife, Bella.
Okay.
Folks, I hope magnesium, you'll fit it into your diet and live a more magnificent life. I'll see you the next time.